What the Pel is up, everybody? This is Pelicans Plus with Elliot Clough at Elliot Clough on Twitter. Before we get started today, make sure that you subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, like, drop a comment, etc. And you may have noticed that we are officially sponsored. This episode is brought to you by Hornitos. Hornitos is the official tequila of Pelicans Plus and Boot Crew Media. So we are officially big time is what I'm telling you right now. Big time enough to be on my hotspot on my old laptop from college. So hoping that this doesn't have to last too long. I just ordered a new laptop that will be coming on Tuesday of this week. So we'll be back at it with good technology. Very excited about that. But anyway, quick reminder for those of you who are just tuning in, make sure you subscribe, comment, like, all that stuff. Subscribe, especially on YouTube. Definitely trying to push that and get more people to engage with us there. So definitely want to do that. But to start things off, when it comes to the Pelicans talk on tonight's episode, which this is rare, don't usually do this on Sundays, but appreciate y'all joining in on your Sunday evening. There were a couple tweets that blew up in the last, 24 hours, 36 hours. And as you know, Twitter tends to dictate what podcasts talk about, especially in the NBA. And so I don't want Twitter to focus or become the narrative that we go off on this podcast, but this is something that we should address here. The narratives just get created by this site, and the one that this is about is Lonzo Ball, which we will talk about momentarily. But first, I want to talk about Zion Williamson. I saw a tweet within the last 24 hours that said John Collins is better than Zion Williamson. And I'm a little shook, to say the least. John Collins is a good player. John Collins was a big part of that playoff run that the Hawks just made. He just signed that 5-year, $125 million deal. And I love that. And by the sounds of it, Nate McMillan has kind of smoothed the waters between him and Trae Young. And I'm glad about that. Like, I don't have anything against the Hawks, nor do I have anything against John Collins. What I have is an argument that is, well, substantiated by the fact that Zion put up 27 points a game on 61% shooting, and we're acting like he's overrated. Also hauled in 7.2 rebounds a game. It was point Zion, and did all of this with a clogged lane and minimal shooting around him. Josh Hart got hurt. Not that he was shooting all that particularly well. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was clearly making a leap, and he got hurt, so he wasn't around anymore towards the end of the season when the Pelicans were trying to make a play-in push. And Brandon Ingram was having trouble creating a shot because the offense was so archaic that he wasn't able to – there were no set – I mean, it was a cluster and a half for Zion Williamson. And what did he do? He went out and scored 27 points per game. First person to do that since Kevin McHale with the Celtics in the 80s. Score over 25 points a game and get the percentage up above 60 in terms of field goal percentage. And his true shooting percentage, I think it was 64.9. That does not happen when you're 20 years old playing in the NBA after less than a season. He's played a season and a half of basketball at the NBA level. And also, to add to that, there was another tweet that said that I quoted, if you follow me on Twitter, which if you don't, you should. It's right there, at Elliot Clough. It said he didn't exactly take the league by storm. What? Like, I'm all for, I tend to be a little more rebellious. I tend to want to go against the narrative, the common theme on Twitter, in person, when it comes to any sort of really a standard that's held or an opinion that's held that I disagree with. I'm going to be fervent on that opinion that I disagree with. And I'm all for bringing a take to the table as long as it's brought with some sort of substance. But this is not brought up with substance. You didn't watch the Pelicans. You didn't look at the stat line. You didn't recognize the fact that he was the number 1 overall pick out of Duke and has been an Instagram sensation since the age of 16. He's a transcendent talent, and this narrative needs to die. It's stupid. GTFO with the Zion Williamson is overrated. Zion Williamson isn't as good as John Collins. Really? Really? And I saw somebody respond to a tweet, to one of my tweets, and I don't mean to be my goal is not to call people out here. That is not my prerogative. That's not what I do for this podcast. Somebody responded to the tweet of mine and said that Zion was supposed to be what Griff envisioned was him being a Draymond Green type for the Pelicans, or a hyped up Draymond Green, and he hasn't been that yet. Well, damn, he's 21. He hasn't even played a full year. What do you expect? I mean, this is unfair to anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter what field you're in. If you're a stockbroker, if you're a banker, if you're a teacher, if you're just a person in general throughout life, you have not fully developed in any way, shape, or form by the age of 21, as much as some people would like to think so, and especially in reference to the NBA and these young players. Zion Williamson is maybe half of what he's going to be, and that half is pretty damn good. 27 points a game in the NBA at the age of 20 before he can have a beer is absolutely incredible. That is beyond me. I just don't get that at all. He's going to get better defensively. He's going to continue to be point Zion, as we've seen. He'll get a better, more reliable jump shot, too. And so this is just out of this world insane. Insane. And there is 100% a narrative around the Pelicans in general, because there was another thing that came up today from basketballnews.com that said the Pelicans had the worst offseason out of any NBA team, saying, I'm going to need to look it up here momentarily, but the main thing that got a lot of attention on Twitter was the fact that this person said the Pelicans gave up Wes Iwundu. Like, this is, I swear on my life, I'm not trying to start beef with anybody or anything at all. It's just, I'm going to read this verbatim. The Orleans Pelicans, they went all in, giving up 2 future first-round picks in the Memphis Grizzlies deal for Jonas Valanciunas and a pick swap. They also didn't re-sign Lonzo Ball, moved off Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams' money, and gave up Wes Iwundu with very little to show for it. I'm all for big swings, but this didn't feel at all calculated. It's hard to understand what they're trying to accomplish, and they certainly took a step back. That's from Iman Adan. That just freaking wow. Freaking wow. Like, you can comment on anything else besides Lonzo Ball. For those of you who are listening, anything I'm talking about and you're engaged, you have a thought, drop it. I'll put it up on the screen and possibly address your question or your thoughts, what have you. But anyway, the fact that people think the Pelicans took a step back after how the fit clearly did not work last year with Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, I don't get it. You get a center who can drastically shoot further away. He's not going to fill it up from deep. He's not, but he's actually capable of shooting it back there, and you have to respect him. And you didn't have to do that with Steven Adams. Eric Bledsoe was atrocious. They traded back and got Trey Murphy, and Trey Murphy's going to be awesome. Okay. This is stupid. They got Devontae Graham, and on top of that, exactly, JV, Jonas Valanciunas, is a monster. 17 and 12 last year. Bang. That's a hell of a lot more, especially stat line, than you're getting from Steven Adams. Drop coverage will be the type of defense the Pelicans run, as Valanciunas just doesn't move particularly quickly. Rim protection may be a negative, but I'm really excited about what Trey Murphy can bring. He'll have to get bigger, stronger. And again, he's not fully developed. He's only 21. And the Pels got back Billy Hernan Gomez. Jackson Hayes will hopefully be around. And I'm really hoping that Hayes continues to develop, even with the legality and the issues that are in front of him right now. What's up? Thanks for tuning in. So I can't fathom somebody looking at the Pelicans roster now and saying that they took a step back as opposed to last year. You got shooting in Devontae Graham. You got shooting in defense in Trey Murphy. And you got a more of a floor spacer in Jonas Valanciunas than what you had in Steven Adams. The defense may step back there, but Willie Green is going to cultivate this defense to where they can actually address problems, to where they can grow. He will cultivate buy-in that Stan Van Gundy could not, and it will be different. The Pelicans did not have the worst offseason in the NBA, and that is incredibly, incredibly arguable. There you go. I'd agree with you, Calvin T. Carr. He wasn't a threat to score. He wasn't a lob threat. That's a great point. He wasn't a threat to score at all. Maybe putbacks. I mean, he wasn't a threat in the pick and roll. He wasn't mobile. That's a great point. I agree with you 100%. 100%. And so, end a mini rant there. And I promise we will get to the point of Lonzo Ball and the title of this episode momentarily. Give me one moment and we'll get right into it. But the one thing I did want to talk about before we do that is the schedule's released for the Pelicans. We haven't been able to talk about it. I think it dropped on Friday. So what's up? Tell everybody hello right now. How you doing? Tell me about it. Appreciate you tuning in. So what my first thoughts were in reference to the schedule was, let's look at these first 10 games. Let's see how they pan out, who they're facing up against, because one of my friends in the Pelicans media, David Grubb, made a really good point on some social media today. I'm connected with him on LinkedIn, so this is where I saw it. I'm going to look it up really fast. But Grubb pointed out the history of the Pelicans in their first 10 games and how important it's been as of late, whether you like Grubb or not. I've always had a good time talking with Grubb, but he makes a very good point here, if I can find it. And strangely enough, it's not on the page. But anyway, something to the effect of, in the years that in like the last decade where they've been over 500 in the first two seasons, they made the playoffs. And where they didn't, they were like 12 and 38 in total and stuff like that. It was a very indicative statistic. Should that trend continue. So a pretty important stat and a very, very good find by Grubb. And I'm sure we'll bring that up after the 10 games and he'll go back and find that. And I will too, because it's of import. So these first 10 games, I tweeted this out, kind of blew up in Pell's Twitter, which was interesting. But the first 10 games they start October 20th. First is at home against the 76ers, at the Bulls, at the Timberwolves, home stretch versus the Hawks, Kings, and Knicks, and then at the Suns, at the Kings, and at the Warriors. So it's not the most difficult stretch of games to start the season, but it's also not, it's not a cupcake. It's not a cakewalk. It's not a cakewalk is what I'm getting at. And so what I'm thinking is they're probably going to go 6-4, 7-3. And I think that's a pretty damn solid stretch at the beginning of the season. You got the Bulls, who are completely beatable. The Timberwolves, who were one of the worst teams in the NBA last year, despite the fact that the Pels lost to them. The Suns, who are strong, so I should not have mentioned them. The Kings twice. And then the Knicks, who I believe, they're beatable, 100% beatable. A lot of those teams that, are in that first 10 stretch of games are formidable, but they're beatable. And there's this, any given night sort of thing in the NBA when it comes to especially the Pelicans and the amount of talent that they have. And we saw this last year. They beat the 76ers, they beat the Bucks, and they just had to engage. And what came of it was them realizing their potential, but we also saw Stan Van Gundy get in the way of that. And so there's only a few things to take away before the season actually starts, and we see all these rosters come to fruition fully what they are and what they will be for the season. And so for right now, we can predict. And I know some people were saying 10-0, Zion's going to eat, or I saw some people say 3-7, and I don't know who is Pels fans, who is not. But if I'm being optimistic, I'm thinking 7-3, a 6-4 start would be awesome. Obviously, it's going to be an issue of talking chemistry, how much Willie Green has made an impact through training camp, rather. The depth, if you believe in the depth of the Pelicans, I definitely do. And so if you have a different prediction in the comments section, go ahead and drop it. What you think the Pelicans record is going to be after those first 10 games. It's going to be really interesting to see and will more than likely be very indicative. Again, drop it in the comments. What do you think the Pelicans record is going to be after those first 10 games? You can head over to my Twitter rather and find that 10 game stretch to start the season. Words are hard sometimes. I think a win over the Bulls, Timberwolves twice, Kings, at least 5 wins. You got to come away with that with 5 wins and hopefully more. And so 6-4, there you go. One thought there. And keep them coming. 6-10, that 6 of 10, I'll take it. 6 of 4, that'll work. But a win over the Bulls, definitely a possibility. The Bulls are loaded, but they're not deep, and that's something we're going to talk about momentarily. 7-3, I like that. I like it. One thing we'll talk about this question here, and then I'll get into the topic of today's episode. And you Lonzo lovers can just go after me. I will disagree, and that's okay. And you're not going to offend me. But anyway, this question, thoughts on a starting lineup, Nah, B.I., Murphy, Zion, and Jonas. That, I'm actually going to put out a tweet about this tomorrow to see what other people think. Thank you for the question, David. Subscribe while you're there. I don't know if you're on my YouTube channel or Boot Crew, but either one, subscribe. We really appreciate you tuning in and asking questions. But the Nah at the point guard position is something that we've talked about a little bit, and it's been a little bit of discourse online. And it's something that I talked about last year, is that Nah has said it himself. He's a 2. He's a shooting guard. And I don't mind putting the ball in his hands to start possessions. I don't mind that at all. On occasion. I don't want him necessarily running the offense, being the point guard, the one on this team. I prefer him at the 2. He is a combo guard who can handle the ball, who can create his own shot, and who can initiate offense, but I don't want him as the primary ball handler. So if Nah is going to start, I'd prefer him at the 2 with Graham starting at the 1. What I'm thinking is, my first thought is Graham, Nah, B.I., Zion, Jonas. But if there's a circumstance where you want to take Nah out of the starting lineup and make him, a scorer off the bench, like a microwave scorer, like we've talked about with Lou Williams and in Cam Thomas, that was the evaluation of him coming into the draft. So if you want Nah to be that, except Nah is a really good perimeter defender too. So there's a lot of different ways it can go. The one thing, in all reality, the starting lineup is not as important as the closing lineup. That was a big problem last year. Steven Adams was on the floor. Eric Bledsoe was on the floor when probably they shouldn't have been. And I'm not saying this is going to be the starting lineup, but a starting or a closing lineup. But a lineup I'm really excited to see is Graham, Nah, Brandon Ingram, Zion, and Trey Murphy. A small ball lineup where you just run the floor and you spread out and you make shots. And if the other team goes small, Zion will just absolutely wreck the interior. Just wreck it. And Trey will hit shots, Graham will hit shots, B.I. will hit shots, Nah will hit shots. I think that could be a death lineup. And so I'm very excited about that. Again, the question coming from David Gladkey. Thanks so much for tuning in, man. I hope you stuck around and were able to check that out. If you're not, you can always check this out again. It'll stay posted on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, as a podcast. So last thing to address second to last thing to address that I know when I put this together, I was like, I am going to get so much heat. And apparently there's probably some people in the comments below just roasted me. And I was expecting this, so I'm not going to be offended. It's a basketball take. You can say what you want about the take or say I don't know basketball, but you clearly didn't watch the Pelicans if you're about to disagree with what I say. Well, maybe not. I see two sides of it, but there's the side that I land on. And we'll address the half that I disagree with after I make my point. So some people, namely Kendrick Perkins, so not a good start, have said that Lonzo Ball will be making his biggest leap next season and that he should be the favorite for most improved player. Yes. Thank you for asking. It's Pelicans Plus on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to it everywhere. As well, YouTube. Yes. So Kendrick Perkins being on that side, probably not a good start for all the Lonzo stands and such. But my question is, who's the person that really resulted in that initial leap for Lonzo? It's Fred Vinson. And where's Fred Vinson staying? New Orleans. We saw the hike in percentage from the free throw line and from the three-point line with Lonzo Ball when he came to New Orleans. And there was another big jump this last year. And I don't want to take anything away from Lonzo. I think he's clearly improved on his own volition. It's not all Fred Vinson. You can't give all the credit to a coach or a teammate or anything when it comes to anybody making a leap like that in terms of consistent shooting. But it really wasn't that consistent. The percentage was great. He shot, I think, 38% from the three-point line this last year and then jumped to 78% from the free throw line. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but that jump is notable, obviously. That's a drastic jump. And you cannot take anything away from Lonzo. But who was the initiator of said jump? It was Fred Vinson. Fred Vinson and Brandon Ingram working together prior to games, I think after games as well. And I could be wrong about that, but I know prior to games at the very least. I mean, the shooting from the free throw line, the percentage obviously got a lot better, which is great, but he's not getting to the free throw line. That's incredibly important if you're going to make that type of jump. And it wasn't there. The numbers from the free throw line, the attempts from the free throw line, 1.2 a game. It's a 22% hike, which is noticeable. It's clear that he made an improvement. But 1.2 free throw attempts a game is not going to necessarily cut it in terms of saying that he's a good free throw shooter because he's not getting to the free throw line. It's just not enough. He doesn't attack the rim with confidence. There was plenty of missed layups we've seen from Lonzo Ball in the last few years. And so it's just he's inconsistent. That is to put it frankly and to make it concise, he's inconsistent. He had that month, I think it was February of this year, where he shot 46% from the three-point line, and then it just dropped off. He'd have nights where he'd go 8 for 10 or 8 for 11 from three, and then he'd go 2 for 11. I don't see how he's worth that $85 million. I'm glad the Pelicans didn't pay him that $85 million because $85 million is for somebody who's shown a level of consistency in the NBA, and Lonzo Ball has not done that. There you go. And I mean, to put this in another context, some people have said, I heard this a lot during the summer league. Well, there you go. That he was, let's see here, that the Pelicans were looking for a point guard going into this season. A lot of people were saying that in reference to Kyra Lewis because they lost Lonzo Ball. But Lonzo Ball didn't play point guard last year. And, well, here's the point. He meant to say, well, I'll give you the credit there, Josh, in his bag. It was a typo, not a problem. We weren't letting Lonzo Ball play his role. That's why he wasn't getting to the basket. And he played point guard before, and it wasn't really something that we saw a lot of. And on top of that, a lot of people are saying he had his best season yet last year, but he was playing the 3-and-D role. So this is not, those two things do not coincide. They don't connect. It's one or the other. He had his best year yet, and he's going to play 3-and-D again this year in Chicago and can continue to get better at that. Or he's a point guard, and he's not good in the half court. He's a stand and shoot guy, can't create his own shot. This Lonzo step backs, I'm going to have nightmares about that for the rest of my life. Doesn't attack the basket. So there's a disconnect. There is a fundamental disconnect. There just is. There's no argument against it. It cannot work. It cannot be both. It can't. And on top of that, the bench won't be deep. They're very top heavy. I saw somewhere that said, I think it was on the Hoop Collective, that said the Bulls won't be in the top, maybe not even in the top 10 in the East. And I am not saying that. I will come right out and say I am not saying that. I mean, you've got DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, Zach LaVine, even, and those three are enough to get you a playoff spot in the East. Like, the East has gotten better, but they're still not as good as the West. So, and then you add Lonzo, and if he's a stand and shoot guy and can play off ball defense and a little bit of on ball defense, he will contribute. I'm not saying Lonzo's garbage. I'm not saying he's trash. He is a good player in the NBA, but he is being overvalued. That is what I'm saying. 4 years, $85 million, not something I would have paid for. And I think that Lonzo Ball is a good basketball player, but you can't have this argument. You just can't. He can't be a point guard, and they're not using him right. And he had the best season of his career. Because it was different. It's different. The bench is not deep, so I'm thinking Lonzo is going to have to play quite a bit of time. And I mean, you got, like I said, DeRozan, LaVine, Vooch, and then Zoe. There's another point guard on this team that the Bulls drafted in Kobe White. They'll probably be inclined to trade him to add a little bit of depth. I could see that for sure. But they only currently have 12 to 13 players on their roster. And that worries me. And like the players who are playable, Tony Bradley, Kobe White, Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, sorry, and Arcidiacono and Javonte Green, it's just like, how much does Ball elevate their ceiling? How much can Lonzo Ball make the Chicago Bulls better? I mean, they traded away both Daniel Gafford and Wendell Carter Jr. We've seen them both flash quite a bit. Wendell Carter Jr. has been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's been hurt pretty frequently this last year. So That'd be somebody I'd be willing to trade as well. But he's shown some pretty fun stuff with the Magic. Daniel Gafford looked pretty damn good with the Wizards. Obviously, they lost Daniel Satoransky, Garrett Temple, Thad Young, and then they also don't have Daniel Tice. So the depth and the I don't think the Ball elevates them. Like he can make a good team better. And I think he will to a minute degree. I do. And I don't want to, I don't want to follow my conversation or that point that I made up about Zion earlier by saying, oh, he's 21. Don't expect him to be something that he's not yet. And you could translate that here to Lonzo. And I could be wrong. I'm going to be, if he plays like hell and is awesome next year for the Bulls in years to come, I'm wrong. I'll take it. I'll own it. But right now, I do not see the fit. I don't see how you work that out. And Josh in his bag again. Fair point. This is exactly what I'm getting at. Exactly what I'm getting at. But right now, oops, he's not worth the money. Neon Nirvana, you got it on the head, man. He is not worth the money. Only in the month of February. He played like a beast last year. Exactly. I don't know if that'll continue into this year, but that's what happened. This narrative that he is an elite defender is not true. We heard Skip say that he just didn't care about defense last year. That was not true as well. Lonzo is a decent defender. Better off ball than on. He is not a point of attack defender. Lonzo guarded Luka last year and just got shredded. Everybody gets shredded by Luka. I get that. But Lonzo Ball is not a point of attack defender. He's just not. He will help you defensively. That length at 6'6" and being a point guard, that will help. He'll be better off ball than on ball. And I think, to wrap it all up, I'm going to wrap this up before the Lonzo stands all lose their minds, because typically we go about half an hour per episode as well. I'm going to wrap this up, and I say that Lonzo Ball will make the Bulls incrementally better. Incrementally better if he plays that role of stand and shoot and help defensively. But you just can't put the ball in his hands in the half court, and he'll be great in transition as well. How good is Nikola Vucevic in transition, etc.? Exactly, Kevin. Yeah, I think your stream might be a little delayed, but Lonzo Ball does not make them a championship contender. I don't think they probably don't get out of the first round. You can call me a hater all you want, but I do not believe that Lonzo Ball makes this team that much better. He makes them better, but he does not make them a top 5 team in the East, a top 4 team in the East. You got Milwaukee, you got Brooklyn, you got the Sixers. I think the Hawks are up there. And I'm not a real believer in the Knicks. Maybe the Celtics bounce back this year. I really believe in Tatum and Brown. And so we'll see what happens again. Yes. Neo Irvana says Magic Johnson propaganda. And I agree. A lot of people have said, I mean, there was a tweet that I saw that people are overvaluing Lonzo, exactly what I'm saying right here. And Magic Johnson, a lot of people were saying he would be Magic Johnson, and he just has not been that. He just hasn't. And I don't think he will be that. I mean, Magic Johnson's arguably the greatest point guard of all time. That is a freaking stretch. And yes, I think that, Lonzo will continue to get better. I kind of hit it already, but he's shown that incremental improvement. But the shot, I don't necessarily see getting a whole lot better because he does not have the shooting guru in Fred Vinson. So I don't necessarily think it's a lost cause. I think he could still get better at it, but this is just not something that I see panning out the way a lot of Bulls fans want it to. So there you go. And now the last thing I wanted to address, Swin Cash, fan favorite in the front office, elected to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame as of late. So I just wanted to say something nice about Swin. I was really happy to see her get that position. She's again beloved by the fan base for good reason. She's a great interview, and she had that meme kind of blow up about her in the draft lottery, and she's just beloved. So throughout her playing career, Cash, I took this from Sports Illustrated, a 4-time WNBA All-Star, powered her way to 3 WNBA championships, 2 WNBA All-Star MVP awards, 2 NCAA titles, and 2 Olympic gold medals. So she is just an awesome person. She's very, very invested in the Pelicans, and she's deserved this position as a WNBA or Women's Hall of Fame. And I think that's awesome. I'm very happy for her. And so there's, I'm sure, hella comments saying how stupid I am about Lonzo and that I'm dumb and all that. And I'm excited to read them once I'm done with this. Folks, before you go, make sure you subscribe, drop a comment, like, etc. on YouTube. Subscribe and leave a rate and review on Apple Podcasts. You can find us there super easily. Same thing for Spotify and Google Play. Go check out bootcrewmedia.com. Of course, this was presented to you by Boot Crew Media and Hornitos Tequila, the tequila of Boot Crew Media and Pelicans Plus. And like I just said, I am Elliot Clough. The handle's right over there. And this was Pelicans Plus.